Sometimes the greatest betrayals don't come with a shout, but with a quiet, calculated sentence. For Clara Bennett, that sentence was delivered over the scent of smothered onions and bell peppers in her own kitchen. "There's no money, Mother Clara. You'll have to stay home." Her daughter-in-law, Elise, spoke the words with a rehearsed sigh of regret, but her eyes, sharp and assessing, held a glint of triumph. Across the table, Clara's son, Daniel, stared at his hands, unable to meet his mother's gaze. The story was always the same: a leaking roof, unexpected black mold, financial strains that magically coincided with their luxurious cruise plans. And once again, Clara, the woman who had built the estate they now lived in, was to be left behind in the small carriage house, like a piece of outdated furniture. "Of course," Clara said, her voice a soft, accepting murmur. "You two go and rest. I'll watch the house." She smiled as they left, a gentle, grandmotherly smile that didn't reach her eyes. It was the same smile she wore later that night as she took out the trash, the chilly autumn wind tugging at her cardigan. As she approached the bins by the main house, a crumpled ball of heavy paper, caught by the breeze, rolled to her feet. An invoice from Apex Voyages, paid in full by Daniel Bennett, for the owner's suite on the riverboat Gilded Magnolia, total $15,000. The exact amount she had given them for urgent repairs 3 days prior. In the dim glow of the street lamp, the world didn't tilt with heartbreak. Instead, it snapped into a cold, crystalline focus. The tears that might have come evaporated, burned away by a slow, steady flame of realization. They hadn't just lied, they had stolen the last of her savings, the money she'd set aside for her own final chapter, and told her to her face she was a burden. Elise thought she had defeated a gentle old woman. Daniel believed his mother would simply endure and forgive. They had forgotten who Clara Bennett was before the aprons and the quiet years. They had forgotten that the name Bennett was once spoken with a mix of respect and wariness in boardrooms across the state. That night, in the silence of the carriage house, Clara didn't pack a bag of sorrow. She unlocked a cedar closet untouched for years. Inside, hanging in garment bags, was not a widow's wardrobe, but the armor of a past life. A cream-colored linen pantsuit of impeccable cut, a silk scarf in terracotta and gold. Then, from a locked drawer, she retrieved a vintage leather agenda. On its first page was a single phone number, unscratched in 12 years. The phone rang twice before a raspy, alert voice answered. "Who is this on this line?" "Cyprian," Clara said, her voice no longer soft, but tempered steel. "It's Clara. I need to exercise my executive override. I need a stateroom on the Gilded Magnolia, now." There was a weighty pause on the line. "Clara, it's been a long time." "Don't ask why, just listen. I need the current ownership structure of Riverflow Holdings, immediately." Minutes later, a genuine smile touched Clara's lips for the first time in years. The cruise line that owned the Gilded Magnolia wasn't just a business, it was a subsidiary of a company she and her late husband had acquired in a quiet takeover 15 years prior. She still held the controlling shares. She wasn't begging for a ticket, she was preparing to board her own ship. The next 48 hours were a masterclass in precise, emotionless execution. While Daniel and Elise bickered over luggage, Clara waged a silent war from her bathroom, the shower running for cover. Her attorney, an old friend named Solomon, chuckled when he heard the plan. "Clara, you always did play the longest game." Operational control of the vessel for the voyage was transferred. Captain Thaddeus, a man she remembered as fiercely loyal and straight as a plumb line, was notified. On the morning of their departure, Clara stood in the porch in a drab raincoat, a decoy travel bag in hand. "I'll be at Sister Alma's. Her sciatica is acting up." Elise didn't hide her relief. Perfect, less electricity wasted. They didn't hug her. The car screeched out of the driveway, chasing their stolen dream. 30 minutes later, a black sedan with tinted windows crunched up the gravel drive. The chauffeur held the door. "Mrs. Bennett, Captain Thaddeus is expecting you." As the car glided away, Clara let the gray raincoat fall. In the rearview mirror, she adjusted her silk scarf. The reflection showed not a pensioner to be pitied, but the CEO. At the bustling port, chaos reigned. Hundreds of passengers jostled in line under the humid sun. Clara's sedan didn't join the queue. It slipped through a service gate marked "Authorized Personnel Only," driving directly onto the wharf where the Gilded Magnolias gangway met the concrete. And there, 50 yards away, trapped behind a chain-link fence in the general boarding scrum, she saw them. Daniel, sweating through his shirt, struggling with oversized suitcases. Elise, in large sunglasses, was berating a porter. They looked exactly what they were, pretenders, playing at a luxury bought with a mother's stolen security. Clara stepped out. 2 crew members in immaculate whites were at her side instantly. "Madam Bennett, your suite is ready." She walked up the private gangway without a backward glance. The door to the owner's suite sighed shut, sealing her in serene, sound-proofed luxury. On the wall, a monitor glowed to life at her touch, splitting into views from the ship's discreet security cameras. She found the feed for the Diamond Suite, stateroom 404. Inside, Elise was spinning, her fuchsia dress a blot of gaudy joy against the elegant cream walls. "Daniel, look at this balcony. It's perfect." Daniel, flushed and proud, popped a bottle of complimentary champagne. "To us," he said, raising his glass, "to finally getting a break." Elise clinked her glass against his, then took a long sip. "And to peace and quiet," she added, a smirk playing on her lips. "No more listening to your mother's wise old stories about saving pennies." She hunched over in a cruel parody, mimicking a shaky, whispery voice. "Oh, children, you go on. I'll just stay here with my tea." They both erupted in laughter, the sound tinny and harsh through Clara's speakers. Daniel shook his head, still grinning. She believed it. She actually believed the roof story. So naive. Clara watched, her hand steady as she brought a cup of rich black coffee to her lips. She felt no rage, only a distant, cold disgust. She picked up the internal phone. "Captain, the guests in 404 have left their cabin. Initiate Phase 2. "Understood, madam." An hour later, the ship was underway, the great river unfolding behind it. Daniel and Elise returned to their cabin, flushed from demanding stronger cocktails at the bar. Daniel tapped his keycard. A red light blinked. He tried again. Red. "What's the holdup?" Elise snapped. "It's not working." A steward appeared, polite and impassive. "May I help?" "Your stupid car demagnetized. Open this door." The steward checked a tablet. "My apologies. There's been an administrative reallocation. This suite is reserved under a priority shareholder clause. Your belongings have been moved to your confirmed accommodation." He handed Daniel 2 old-fashioned brass keys, stamped on the tag 012. "Where is that?" Elise demanded, her voice rising. "Lower deck, ma'am, stern, near the engineering spaces." Elise's shriek echoed down the hall. "The BGE? You're putting us in the BGE? I want to see the manager, now." The steward merely pointed upward. "The administration office is on the sun deck, in the VIP area." They stormed up the stairs, a typhoon of entitled fury, bursting onto the secluded VIP sun deck, ready to dismantle the world, and found Clara. She sat at a central table under a canvas awning, a book of French poetry in one hand, a porcelain espresso cup in the other. The sunset painted the river in gold behind her. She looked like an institution. For a long moment they just stared. "Mother?" Daniel finally stammered. Elise found her voice first, a venomous hiss. "You! What are you doing here? How did you get here? Did you steal from us?" Clara slowly set down her cup. "It was my money, Elise, the money you stole for your rotting beams. I'm simply using it for a change of scenery." "You crazy old stalker!" Daniel shouted, embarrassment curdling into rage. "Get off this ship! Get out of here!" He took a threatening step forward. Elise lunged, her manicured fingers reaching to grab Clara's scarf. A voice like grinding granite froze them mid-motion. "Remove your hands!" Captain Thaddeus emerged from the bridge, his dress uniform impeccable, his presence filling the deck. 2 security officers flanked him. He stepped between Elise and Clara, his shadow engulfing her. "Remove your hands," he repeated, quieter now and infinitely more dangerous, "from the owner of this vessel." The word hung in the air, immense and impossible. "Owner?" choked out Daniel, a disbelieving laugh. "Captain, you're mistaken. This is my mother. She's a pensioner. She lives in our guest house." Captain Thaddeus turned his glacial gaze on Daniel. "Mr. Bennett, Madam Clara Bennett is the controlling shareholder of Riverflow Holdings. She owns this company, that port, and this vessel from keel to stack. You are currently standing in her private salon." The color drained from Daniel's face. Elise's knees buckled. She grabbed a chair to stay upright. The reality, more brutal than any fantasy, crashed down upon them. They hadn't stolen from a weak old woman. They had pickpocketed a dragon. "Mama?" Daniel whispered, his legs giving way. He didn't sit, he collapsed, his knees hitting the teak deck with a sickening thud. Elise sank down beside him, her earlier fury replaced by pure animal terror. Clara didn't look at them. She stirred her coffee. "Captain, please have our uninvited guests shown to their accommodations. I believe they are in 012. They were escorted away, not to the plush corridors of the upper decks, but down, down into the ship's belly. Cabin 102 was a metal box directly above the propeller shaft. The constant bone-deep vibration rattled the teeth. There was no porthole. This was not a cabin for guests. It was a cell for contemplation. Clara let them stew, let the fear and the furious whispers fill that cramped space. That evening she had them summoned to a small oak-paneled private dining room, the Romanoff. They entered with a shred of renewed hope, thinking this was the reconciliation. They found Clara at the head of the table, finishing a plate of herb-crusted trout. 2 empty chairs faced them. No place settings awaited them. "Sit," she said. They did, and Kenyatta attempted a tremulous smile. "Mother Clara, what a misunderstanding today. We were just so stressed with the house, the repairs." Clara pushed a thick gray folder across the polished table. "Open it." Daniel did. It was a forensic audit account. Line after line, transaction after transaction, highlighted in red. the inflated pharmacy bills that funded Elise's spa days, the grocery allowances that paid for their high-end liquor, and the crown jewel, the $15,000 transfer, matched timestamp for timestamp with the cruise invoice. "You've been eating at my table for years, Daniel," Clara said, her voice terribly calm. "I was patient. I hoped your conscience would speak. It never did." She tapped the final page. "As of 1 hour ago, all powers of attorney are revoked. Your joint accounts are frozen. Your personal cards are overdrawn and blocked. You have no access to funds, not even for a bottle of water on this ship." The silence was suffocating. "You can't do this," Elise shrieked, leaping up. "We're your family. We're in the middle of the river." "How will you live without me?" Clara asked softly, echoing their own unspoken thoughts back at them. She pressed a button. The head of security entered. "Dinner is concluded. Please escort them out." The following morning, a fog lay thick on the water. Clara was in the solarium, a blanket over her knees, when Elise found her. The transformation was startling. The sharpness was gone, replaced by a picture of tear-strained remorse. Her hair was a mess, her face bare. "Mother Clara, may I?" she whispered, the perfect victim. She spun a tale of manipulation, of being misled by Daniel, of her own innocent desire for a better life. "I'm leaving him," she vowed, tears rolling freely. "I'll pay back every penny. Just don't cast me out. Give me a chance." Clara listened, then poured her a cup of tea. "You are very convincing, Elise." She picked up a tablet. "This ship has excellent security. Audio recording is standard in all cabins, especially near the engines, for safety." She pressed play. Elise's own voice, shrill and vicious from the night before, filled the solarium. "Declare her incompetent, senile dementia. We'll dump that old cow in the cheapest state facility, sell the house and be done with it." Clara stopped the recording. The words "old cow" seemed to hang among the orchids. Elise turned to stone. "Nursing home?" Clara asked quietly. "The cheapest one?" She stood. "Your sponsorship, Elise, is canceled." The final, desperate play came later that day. They burst into the ship's library, dragging the bewildered ship's doctor behind them. "She's having a psychotic break," Daniel yelled, pointing at Clara. "Delusions of grandeur. She needs to be sedated, restrained. We need a medical report for emergency guardianship." The doctor, a man named Bouchard, finally wrestled his arm free. He smoothed his coat, gave Clara a barely perceptible nod, and turned to Daniel. "Young man," Dr. Bouchard said, his voice icy, "I have been Madame Bennett's personal physician for 22 years. Her cognitive health is, and has always been, exemplary. Your hysterics, however, suggest you might benefit from an evaluation." He handed Daniel a slip of paper. "My consultation fee for this false emergency, $500. It will be added to your shipboard account." As the doctor left, Clara looked at her son and his wife, now utterly broken. "Get out." The voyage continued. For Clara, the river unfolded in beauty. For the occupants of cabin 012, it was a slow descent into a silent hell. Finally, the engines shifted to a low hum, then fell silent. They had not returned to New Orleans. Clara stood at the main disembarkation door on the lower deck. Captain Thaddeus was beside her. Daniel and Elise were brought up, blinking in the cold afternoon light. They stood on a worn concrete levee in the middle of nowhere. Ancient cypress trees draped in moss surrounded them. The only sign of life was a lone crow circling above. At their feet were their 4 expensive suitcases. Daniel's face lit with pathetic hope. "An excursion? You brought us to see the Riverlands?" "This is your stop. Get off." The truth dawned slowly, then all at once. "You're leaving us here," Elise screamed, her voice cracking. "This is a wilderness. We have no money, no car." Clara leaned on the railing, the wind catching her scarf. "You told me there's no money. Stay home." Her voice carried clearly over the water. "Well, now you have no money, and you cannot afford passage on my ship any longer." The gangway was winched up, the engines thrummed back to life. "Mother, please, we'll die!" Daniel wailed, rushing to the water's edge. "You're young, you're healthy," Clara called back, the distance growing. "You always said you were self-made. Here is your chance to prove it." As the gilded magnolia pulled away, the last thing Clara saw were 2 tiny, frantic figures on the empty levee, growing smaller and smaller until they were swallowed by the landscape. She turned to face the bow. Captain Thaddeus approached. "Course for New Orleans, madam? Back on schedule?" Clara took a deep breath of the free, river-scented air. A feeling hot and immense, a feeling she had not felt in decades, welled up in her chest. It wasn't a chuckle, it wasn't a sigh. She threw her head back and laughed, a full, rich, unburdened laugh that startled the gulls and echoed over the wide Mississippi. "No, Captain," Clara said, a true smile finally lighting her face. "To hell with the schedule. Plot a course north, all the way to the headwaters. I've always wanted to see the fall colors on the upper Mississippi." "That's a 2-week journey, madam." "I have the time," Clara Bennett said, her eyes on the endless river ahead. "At long last, I have all the time in the world." And so the ship carried on, leaving the past on a distant wind-swept shore. The water flowed, steady and constant, a reminder that no chapter, however difficult, lasts forever. Let the image of the wide, forgiving river soothe your mind. Let the gentle vibration of the ship's engines lull your body into rest. The story is told. Justice, in its own quiet way, was served. And now, in the calm that follows the storm, it is time to let go, to release the tension, and allow yourself to be carried into deep, peaceful, and restorative sleep. Good night.